Foundations of Amateur Radio. One of the many acronyms that define our world of amateur radio is VFO. It stands for Variable Frequency Oscillator. That doesn't explain much if you're not familiar with the purpose of it and just how special this aspect of amateur radio is. Much of the world of radio beyond our hobby, like broadcast television, Wi-Fi and Citizen Band or CB, to name a few, uses radio spectrum in a particular way. On a television, you change channels to switch between stations. Similarly, a Wi-Fi network uses specific channels to make your wireless network a reality. And the same goes for CB, different channels to make yourself heard. Looking specifically at CB for a moment, if you look at channel 8, for example, depending on which type of equipment you have, your radio might be using 27.055 MHz or 476.575 MHz or 476.6 MHz. Each of those frequencies can be described as CB channel 8. The first is on the 27 MHz or 11 meter band. The second is if you're using a 40-channel radio, which is now depreciated. And the third is if you're using an 80-channel radio. If you look at digital broadcast television, channel 8 is on 191.5 MHz. On Wi-Fi, channel 8 is on 2.447 GHz or 5.040 GHz. You get the point. Depending on where you are as a user of radio spectrum, channel 8 might mean a whole host of different things, and as I've described with CB radio, that might even change over time. Harry Potter needed magic to reach platform 9 3/4 at King's Cross Station to get to school. In a channelized world, getting to an in-between frequency is not possible if you're using licensed equipment, unless you're a radio amateur. Then you can use magic to get into the gaps. That magic is called the VFO. You might recall that our radios use many different frequencies internally to be able to filter out specifically what signal you want to hear. Most of those frequencies are fixed. In fact, in the vast majority of cases, these are actually tuned and calibrated to work in a very specific way. The one exception is the VFO. It's by nature variable. It's likely calibrated, but it's not fixed, and that allows our community to tune our equipment to any frequency we desire. The traditional user interface for this is a big knob on the front of your radio, colloquially referred to as the dial, as in turn the dial to change frequency. This allows us something quite rare in radio land. We can be frequency agile. It means that if there's interference at a specific frequency, we can tweak our VFO and slightly modify where our radio is tuned. You use this almost subconsciously when you're on HF trying to tune to a particular station. In the world of software radio, there's likely no knob. You type in a number and the variable frequency oscillator in the radio is tuned to another frequency, and the output signal, or transmit signal if you're making noise on air, changes to another frequency. Digital modes like Whisper, which generally use a very specific frequency, also vary that frequency, but in a different way. You set your radio to the appropriate so-called dial frequency, let's say 28.1246 MHz on the 10 meter band, and then the software alters the signal by up to 200 Hz to change within the available audio range of your radio, altering between a low of 1400 Hz and a high of 1600 Hz, making the actual whisper frequency on 10 meters between 28.1260 and 28.1262 MHz. I'm mentioning the whisper example because while we are frequency agile in our hobby, we do use channels as well. There's a specific set of frequencies set aside, channels, if you like, for Whisper, FT8 and other modes. We do the same on the 2 meter and 70 centimeter bands, where we have rules for where repeaters are allowed to be. It means that we get the best of both worlds. We have the stability and institutional knowledge where repeaters or some modes go, but we also get to play in any spot we want. For example, there's nothing stopping me and a friend setting our radio to some random frequency within our license allocation, an outside pre-allocated space, and run a Whisper transmitter there. Only the two of us will know about it, well, at least at first, but it allows us to experiment away from other users who might experience interference from our tests and exploration. The VFO is what makes our hobby so very interesting, and it's what makes it possible to do weird and wonderful experiments. I'm Onno, Victor Kilo 6, Foxtrot Lima, Alpha Bravo.